Welcome to Coleman Report Live. I'm Bob Coleman, and we're talking Main Street and the small business lenders who help it grow. Katie Watucky, our editor. Katie, this is your last day for a couple of weeks, so enjoy your vacation. John, out of undisclosed location in Virginia. John, American banker, a very nice resume. Hey, are you through with all your Army commitments?
I'm through.
All right, so
I'm a civilian again.
Oh, that would be fun to have you reporting from Afghanistan, but probably not.
No.
Probably not you want to do. Hey, we got a ton of information. Thank you all for joining us. Let's go to the poll questions. What percentage of PPP fees have you received from SBA? I do know that Paul was saying that some of his loans are classified in research, and we said you just have to reach out to SBA and find out what's going on with those. He said the first place to look is if there's a easy error such as a typo. 5002 report was in the wrong box. That's good. What do you think of that, John? 42% have got their fees, and over 90% is what, 86%?
Yes. Yeah, the overwhelming majority has all or almost all, and you add the people who have received at least 50%, and then it really gets quite overwhelming.
For those of you less than 25%, reach out to Capital Access. I know they're being very responsive on that, and it's being held up for a reason, so you need to find out the reason. That's the takeaway from that poll question. Would PPP demand increase if blanket forgiveness was enacted for loans under $2 million? Actually, the better question is, should it be enacted? But yeah, of course, people say yes, 76% yes, 8% no. John, are you up to date with the proposals out of the Senate on what they're planning on forgiveness?
Yes. Both bills, the HEROES bill that the Democrats introduced, I guess it's been at least a week now, and the HEALS Act that the Republicans just introduced on the 26th.
I got to stop you. I got to know what these acronyms are because they go over my head. So what does HEROES stand for?
Yeah.
I got John.
The act, and all I can remember is HEALS is HELS for the Republicans, and I remember thinking that they need a better public relations person because HEALS, it's too easy to go to HELS. But the acronyms you got me on. That always.
I don't know. If I knew, this isn't a trick question. Because trick question is, the answer. I don't know.
It's a trick question. I ignore those and go more to the substance. But the good thing about the substance is, with regard to PPP, there doesn't seem to be a lot of dissension in the between the parties. The Republican bill actually increases funding. It takes it was and I think I mentioned before, and other people have mentioned, Secretary Mnuchin talked about topping the funding off at his appearance before the House Small Business Committee, and the bill increases funding to $190 billion. I beg your pardon, $190 billion. So that's significant for PPP going forward. It also creates a pathway for companies that are still suffering to get a second loan. Second forgivable loan.
John, you feel this is a bipartisan support of these bills? Do you see any hang up on getting them done by the August recess?
I think a lot is going to depend on things that aren't PPP related. And by that specifically, it looks like the unemployment portion of that. But there seems to be broad support for PPP. There seems to be broad support for additional stimulus checks of at least $1,200 for Americans. It's that the unemployment is a sticking point, and some of the other things, aid for local governments that have nothing to do with PPP and small business, but have become battlegrounds for the two parties.
John, are you concerned at all with our GDP at negative 32%, which no one would have predicted 6 months ago? And how quickly do you see it rebounding?
I see it rebounding relatively fast. I guess everyone would have hoped for a V-shaped recovery, but I think, if you look at what they said, negative 32%, it's for the entire second quarter, which included April, which was a catastrophic month. May, not much better, and then things began opening up a little bit in June. One of the themes that came through the banking earnings that I followed this past week was cautious optimism that has been tempered a little bit more by the resurgence of PPP in some states, but still cautious optimism. A number of bankers said that, and a number said that they are seeing good business. Even one Florida banker said he was talking about sort of manufacturing in general there, but he said manufacturing, he used the term on fire in Florida. So
well, I've said this before.
About the first quarter.
Well, I've said this before, and I think it's worth repeating, and that is the difference between 2020 and 2009. 2009, we didn't have a credit market. Credit markets froze. Main Street couldn't get loans. It was there was no. I remember we did a webinar on hotel financing, and the experts said that 90% of all hotels are being done by 7A and 504 loans. So a huge difference this time around is we do have liquidity. There is an appetite in Congress to get the liquidity out to Main Street. And it'll be interesting to see when they write the history books, John, on which approach worked.
It will be interesting. A lot of that may become clearer in this quarter. A lot of the forecasts I saw expected a significant drop in GDP in the second quarter and a rebound in the third and fourth, so that at the end of the year it will still be a negative year, but it will be in the single digits negative, not like the report we saw today.
Katie, let's get you in here and give us a quick update on what they're talking about. Now, this is not official. It's got to be passed and whatever, but there are 3 buckets of forgiveness, one under 150, one between 150 and 2 million, and over 2 million. Why don't you give us a recap of those very quickly?
For the new forgiveness bill, or?
Yeah.
So that was introduced a few days ago, and it's very similar to the P4 bill that we had been discussing before, just a couple tweaks. And I think, like John was saying, this will probably get passed. I think there's still some discussion as to what the bill will all include at the end. We've seen definitely an initial draft of that bill. So it does sound like it's going to probably pass, but there are some other factors that are unrelated to SBA and PPP that could affect it.
Yeah, and Rubio said, Senator Rubio, the chair of the Senate Small Business Committee, said it's going to get done. It's just going to be difficult.
Right. They want a bipartisan bill on this, and I think they're working real hard to try to get that.
Good. Well, good. I'm glad to see part of Washington is working, and I'm glad to hear that. John, what else are you working on these days? Anything else? Oh, I'm sorry. Let's go to the third poll question. Does the SBA Form 3508 limit small businesses from PPP loan forgiveness? Yes, 15, no, 38. Who wants to comment on this one?
Well, I'll just say I would have fallen in the no category. I don't think I'm going back in my head over what's in that, but I don't think there's anything in the easy really different from what's in the standard Form 3508 that would limit any type of business from getting forgiveness. So
yeah. I agree. I don't know why we asked that question other than, I don't know, sometimes content. is
Some knowledge.
John, what else are you working on?
Well, we did write a story last week, I guess it was Friday, about the notice, the procedural notice that was big news then. Now it's been several days, so everyone knows about it. But the portal will open on the 10th, and the forgiveness portal, and there will be a mechanism for batch submissions. I guess they don't use that term, but basically batch submissions. And the bankers I talked to were excited about that, and particularly about the batch submissions. But as we alluded to right before the broadcast started, Bob, it'll be interesting to see whether the forgiveness portal, just from a technical aspect, works better than E-Tran did in submitting the loans in the first place. So hopefully it will run smoothly, and this whole process will get off to a smooth start.
Have you seen any dashboards, any mock-ups on what lenders are going to be using?
Well, I know there's a couple. I know AICPA has a tool out
Right.
that should make it very easy, but also where there's a tool out and it's being pushed by the CEO of the Bank of Oklahoma City, and all of a sudden I have gotten the name up. But it's just a free tool for community banks, a free forgiveness tool. So there's a number of them out there, and hopefully they also will help. But the AICPA is sort of the big one with the most behind it, I think, to help.
Shout out to Russell. Russell says HEALS is health, economic assistance, liability protection. Thank you.
Well, he is better than I always ignore those, I have to admit.
Yeah, and I don't have a name on this
these
one.
acronyms, it's just, I don't know which ones to memorize anymore.
We will have a test on this tomorrow.
Yeah.
Heroes, ready? Now this is a mouthful. Health and Economic Recovery Omnibus Emergency Solutions Act. I think there was a lot of wine involved in picking those names.
Yeah.
I'm
I like to
Brandy.
get it when they were just PL, 147 or whatever. It was just PL and a number.
There you go. Brandy, I'm going to hold your question over for Lance tomorrow. Okay. Anything else on this page that is of interest to you, John?
A little bit, the last item, lender responsibilities when 7A loans are sold to another lender. I'm going to assume that that's alluding to PPP loans. That there's just going to be another announcement made in the next day or so about more PPP loan sales.
Where are we on the PPP loan fund? Are we still around that $130 billion level, Katie?
That's what I saw last time I checked. I've seen it go up and down over the past couple of weeks, and it seems like it's really hovering around that 130.
Good. Let's see. Guidance and underwriting 504 loans. SBA's come out with some, not very specific, but there's certain things they want you to address in your credit memos. Specifically, they want an analysis of how COVID or really shutdowns are affecting your borrower, how shutdowns are affecting the location. Is it in a mall? Is it standalone? Is it in Orange County or Iowa, where you have not as much interruption of Main Street? How's that, John?
That's a good summation.
Yeah. So let's we're going to do a webinar next week on construction, and we're going to be addressing that. So that is part of that. We got a bunch of questions. Let's go to them. Jeff says, similar to what lenders have available to them currently for PPP funding, has anyone heard whether a liquidity mechanism will be made available for P4, the SBA stimulus. John, what have you heard?
I don't think there's any new liquidity function in there because they have
They have it in place.
they have it in place, and it's being I know that one is being used very, very widely. So it's there and it's working.
Do you know how much of a haircut there are on these PPP loans when they sell them to another lender?
No, they haven't talked about that. Obviously, I know there's a discount involved, and that since there haven't been more sales announced, I'm wondering. Obviously, that leads one to believe that maybe the discount is just too much for banks' appetite.
Oh, and here's the question from Paul. We're still getting research under some of our PPP loans. Any update on what this is for and what we should be researching? Paul Lance is a better expert on this than I am, but I do know you can go to a couple places. You can go to SBA. You can go to Coleman. Lance seems to telegraph or say there are common errors such as typos, such as wrong check boxes in terms of sole proprietorship or corporations. Katie, you're nodding your head. What have you heard?
That's just what I've heard too. Usually, I believe there's a way to see where the problem might be. I don't personally know because I haven't used the system, but I know it is usually an error, either just a typo in the address is pretty common. Typo in names, things like that. They're very common. So just go through it and see if there's something like that. And if you then can't find it, of course, reach out to Coleman and find out
David asked a question. Will you please discuss what documentation we should obtain in order to support a forgiveness claim under Safe Harbor? Basically, first of all, this isn't official, right? So that's number one. Number two, under 150, no documentation required. 150 to 2 million, you need to have documentation, but SBA doesn't want to see it. They just want to make sure it's on the shelf. Over 2 million, that's where a lot of the fraud is. SBA is going to be reviewing those carefully. Very good. John, last word. What else are you working on?
One thing we're going to take a very close look at. A lot of people have certainly noticed this and reported on it already, but the SBA Inspector General report on EIDL and the $10,000 advances. And I don't know if you should probably use the word rampant, but certainly widespread fraud seems to be a problem there.
Great. Well, very good. Katie, enjoy your time off. When are we going to see you? In a couple weeks?
Yeah, I believe I get back the 17th, so.
Well, you're not back here. You're in Seattle, so.
Back on the show.
Well, you have a wonderful time and be safe and just enjoy the next 2 weeks. It's Katie's getting married, John, so that's what we're very happy for her. Questions, please send them to me or Joseph, and we'll get them on the show. I have a couple specific questions that I need to give to Lance because he has better answers than me. And Corey says, by the way, Ebrigo, formerly SageWorks, has a great platform, and our bank uses them for our entire loan origination and servicing platform. I have no issue giving shout outs for those types of referrals. And with that, thank you for joining us today for Coleman Report Live and supporting America's Main Street, one entrepreneur at a time. Thanks, John.
Bye-bye.